Thank you, Chair. We are ready to go in just a moment. I'll just let our AV staff send us live whenever you are ready. Thank you, Chair. I can confirm that the meeting of CPED is now live.
Thank you very much. So good morning and welcome to Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee. We're starting this meeting at 10:10. It's a little late. We had some IT and administrative things to figure out up here, but we are ready to go now. And I just want to note that we have a pretty full gallery this morning. It's great to see so many people here. Welcome. I just ask that you check your phones, make sure your ringers are turned off, and we will begin our meeting with a call to order and land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Just want to note that on the committee today we have Councillor Outhitt, Councillor Austin, and Councillor Smith, so we have quorum. I'm going to start with approval of the minutes from February 15th, 2024. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Smith, and seconded by Councillor Austin. Are there any errors or omissions or comments on the minutes? Nope. Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Are there any further changes to the order of business?
Thank you, Chair. There have been no requests received by the clerk's office indicating the additions or deletions for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. So I will call for a motion to approve the order of business as presented. Councillor Outhitt, second by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? That passes. Okay, business arising out of the minutes. There's no business out of the minutes. Call for a declaration of conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest this morning? Nope. Okay, we're all good then. We don't have any motions of reconsideration or rescission. There's no consideration of deferred business, and there's no notices of tabled matters. So with that, we'll go on to correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Mr. Clerk, has all the correspondence been circulated?
Thank you, Chair. There was one piece of correspondence submitted as part of item 10.3.2. That correspondence has been circulated to all members of Standing Committee.
Thank you for confirming that. And are there any petitions to be presented today? I see none. And so with that, we will move on to presentations. So we have two presentations this morning. The first one is 10.3.1, Establishing New Routes, the Mission and Vision of the North End Halifax Community Land Trust. And I will invite Trino Morden to come forward and present. And I understand that you have a PowerPoint presentation. Can we get that up on the screen, please? Fantastic. Okay, so you have 10 minutes for your presentation. The clerk here will let you know. We'll give you a 30-second warning when you're getting toward the end of the time by holding up. I don't know how the signs are out of reach for you there. There we go. There we go. 30 seconds, and the red one to say that your time is up. There will be, but I ask when you're done your presentation just to remain seated because there's an opportunity for us to ask some questions. And with that, are you ready? Yes. Okay, then I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Today we're here to present on behalf of New Roots Community Land Trust. My name's Trino Morton, urban planning student and aspiring planner. My community of Uniacke Square, similar to Mulgrave Park and others, was founded out of displacement. Intended as transition housing with the promise of employment and educational opportunities for ANS individuals, We never transitioned from it, and the opportunities never materialized. The effects of displacement have been felt far and wide through the African Nova Scotian community, from Cogswell to Preston to Beachville, and most notably Africville. What followed for ANS residents was significant economic losses estimated in the tens of millions. Urban renewal initiatives have perpetuated this cycle through property devaluation, business closures, and income disruption. Gordon Stevenson, the architect behind HRM's urban renewal and responsible for the displacement of Africville, Cogswell, and surrounding ANS communities. He mapped out what he saw as the city's social challenges as a justification for the raising and erasure for our communities, stating that in its present state of decay and stagnation, it is repelling to good commercial development, rubbish to Stevenson, and even the city at the time. But to us, these were our homes and businesses. Despite Stevenson's designation of dirty and decaying, something community couldn't adequately address on their own, our properties were always adequate enough to be seized from us and developed upon. Urban renewal resulted in the total erasure and displacement of ANS communities. 6,000 African Nova Scotians displaced through urban renewal, with only 1,500 houses for them to relocate to, losing any real sense of community they once knew. Here you can see Stevenson's dots overlaid on the top of the Cogswell redevelopment today. You can see that the history cannot be removed from the future, regardless of how many times you redevelop on top of it. It's plain to see we were located in the heart of the city, in the heart of urban renewal. As homeowners and working class citizens, and in the plan for Cogswell, we want to make sure there was a way for us to return to this status. To many, the Cogswell interchange served as a symbol of ugliness, loss of character for the city, and a waste. But to us, it's a symbol of displacement. And with it now being torn down again, this is the time and opportunity to begin to rectify those injustices that happened here and surrounding the ANS community. In my community, there's a legitimate reason to be concerned that this project will cause further displacement through increasing housing prices and driving out what's still left of the ANS community. This is not an outcome any of us want, and we believe you feel the same way. So we come to you today with a solution to help progress our project that will help prevent further displacement of ANS residents, tackle the housing crisis in turn, and begin repairing the effects still felt by past harms. Our proposed solution to achieve this outcome is to be strategically allocated Parcel D to the New Roots Community Land Trust, as highlighted above. This area was chosen due to it being directly located in the heart of urban renewal, where thousands of African Nova Scotian residents were displaced from. So who are we? We're New Roots Community Land Trust, which is a community-led and stewarded initiative. We're a nonprofit organization with a specific mandate to acquire and develop housing assets under the stewardship and for the service of African Nova Scotian North End communities. This is not an isolated effort, however. In addition to community, the CLT brings together key organizations and individuals working on housing and economic prosperity for the ANS community. These are a list of some of the African Nova Scotian community leaders and organizations that have been supporting this work from inception to date. Our mission is simply to secure the economic and cultural legacy of the North End African Nova Scotian community. Our housing vision, to own and store strategically selected parcels of real estate within the North End and beyond, ensuring that the development of these lands reflect the diverse and rich tapestry of our communities. To share with you further, I pass it over to Hussam Malukta.
Thank you, Trino. Hello, everyone. My name is Hussam Malukta. I'm an urban planner and development consultant with Happy Cities. Together with the Affordable Housing Association of Nova Scotia, we represent the development consulting team that is helping the CLT put together a feasible project proposal and a community vision for the site. We've been talking closely with various levels of government and support organizations to make this work possible. I'm going to share with you that proposal today, but please be mindful that although you're hearing my voice, I'm only relaying the hopes, aspirations, and vision of the North End community that we've been working with through several community sessions over the past few months. So, as Trino mentioned, the CLT is looking to strategically acquire and allocate the Site D in the New Roots Community Land Trust. So what's the CLT planning to do with it? In short, they're planning to build a mixed-use, mixed-income, high-rise building. This is what this building can look like. Please bear in mind that this is very early concept, so don't dwell on the design details. We're sharing with you so you can see the scale of the community's aspiration. So what's going on inside this building? Kind of the top tower portion here is mixed market units. That means some are affordable, with a focus on making sure they're accessible to African Nova Scotian individuals and communities. And some are market units to make the affordable units possible. In total, we expect to fit up to 436 units in there. And these aren't just going to be residential areas only within these towers. Community is central to the African Nova Scotian culture, so they hope to have amenity spaces and gathering spaces interspersed throughout this building, indoor and outdoor spaces. The towers sit on a podium where there is aspiration to have 20 to 30,000 square feet of community and recreation space. The community envisions this to include recreational activities, childcare facilities, and possibly healthcare facilities. This is a component that still needs to be developed further, but is a key part of the community's hope here. As well, they hope to have some ground level commercial space with at least some of it focused on Black-owned businesses. This is to promote economic prosperity and further culture in the district. What you're seeing here is a building that not only fits with HRM's vision for the Cogswell district, we believe it's something that will add significantly to the cultural heritage of the city and pay true commemoration to the presence and the displacement that happened here to the African Nova Scotian community. It's a vertical community within a community and a place that can be a great addition to the city's landscape. So I know what you must be thinking. Why not just sell the parcel, right? HRM can make $10 to $15 million selling this parcel right now to the private sector. And I'm going to give you a few reasons why they shouldn't just do that. The first reason is that this is an investment in community housing. And research shows that investment in community housing can bring more economic return than just market housing. A 2023 Deloitte study showed that for every unit of community housing we build by 2030, you can get up to $137,000 in economic return. That means for the 436 units we're talking about here that can be enabled by HRM given this parcel to the CLT, you can get up to $50 to $60 million in economic return. That is a 5 to 6 times return on your investment, and there aren't that many better investments than that. The second reason is that this is a viable solution to tackle the housing crisis, one that fits within HRM policy, what HRM has already outlined within their policy, and to address African Nova Scotian needs. A recent motion by Council for the African Nova Scotian Road to Economic Prosperity plan that focus on 2 strategic directions. One is to build unity and capacity within African Nova Scotians, and this is a great example of that. And the second is to establish land ownership, develop infrastructure, and attract investment in African Nova Scotian communities. And again, this is a great example of that. HRM's direction to HRM's planning team for the land use policy on the Cogswell district give a specific direction to include affordable housing and work and coordinate with community groups and consider community land trusts. So again, this is directly in line with this. The third reason is we think this is a chance to right historical wrongs and secure the future of ANS communities in North End and in the Cogswell district. We know that HRM's vision for Cogswell was a community that includes African Nova Scotians. It shows in HRM's clear statements, it shows in the art and commemoration plan that is ongoing for the site, and it shows in even the renderings that are used for this plan. And this won't just happen by good wishes. We believe that land divestment is the way to turn this good intent into action. So what does the group need? First is a motion to direct staff to consider a strategic allocation of Lot D to the New Road CLT. Consideration of transferring some housing assets in the North End to the CLT, which is important in securing early financing. Allowing staff to consider some height flexibility to enable more community amenities on the site. And there are other policy requests that we have submitted and will follow up with HRM staff. And with that, I'll pass it back to Trino to close us off.
Thank you, Hussam. With that, I just wanted to say nothing of the scale has ever been attempted before, but we're eager and determined to begin this work and build capacity to replicate it in other places. This work is new to us and we don't have all the answers, but as the mayor once stated, in order for us to improve the economic prosperity of the ANS community, it has to be a collective effort. And most importantly, this change will only be real and lasting if the tools are given to the people who have been denied them for far too long. Embracing community land trust creates a blueprint for progress that can be replicated nationwide. This is HRM's chance to support an ANS-led initiative in building a more prosperous future for ourselves and in turn Halifax, where everyone can truly match their ambitions to their opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, rule of chamber, we just need to hold our applause, so that was an excellent presentation, I agree. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I see that we have some questions from, first on my board, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Trino and Hassan, for being here. And thank you for not throwing everybody out of the chamber chair for the applause. Appreciate that. Just a couple questions. Well, first off, we've had an opportunity to connect on this, and it's great to see the presentation more fleshed out, and you can see that you're working hard with the community to make this possible. So I just want to say great job and thank you for that. So can you speak a little bit on and obviously this is very early, so you might not have thought about this to the minute level, but just logistics of being able to fund the building, because there's options in terms of working with developer and not working with developer, and you spoke about the community being its ownership. So I just wonder if you can highlight that and a little bit more, and also when you get deeper into this, flushing out your plan related to, getting architectural drawings and getting in drafts and working with planners, like how do you plan on funding that? Because I don't know how much you have in the bank account, but as you said, this is a newly formed nonprofit. So just how do you plan on that? Are you reaching out to organizations to make that happen? And yeah, that's it for now.
I can jump in and answer that question. So when we work with nonprofits that are seeking to build housing, we always offer them the various ways that they can move ahead to get a project built. And that sometimes an option includes partnering with the private sector. It comes with upsides and downsides, such as losing control over what gets built and having some requirements. Other options is for them to work with development consultants that are they work for the CLT, for the community. And some benefits to that include having the ability to build capacity within the community to be able to do more projects like this in the future, right? All the options are on the table, but the community really likes the idea of building capacity within their organization to be able to build more. How this project gets financed, we are in conversations with CMHC, with Housing Nova Scotia. There are various existing affordable housing programs that support projects of this size, and this is going to be a project of significant size. But what we're doing here now is putting together a team that has the development expertise to guide the CLT through this, to make sure that they are getting the advice of people that are working for them, as well, opening the conversation with the feds and the provincial level, because the community believes that they have a responsibility in this as well. So this is something that's going to take kind of 3 tiers of government to make possible, we believe. But the initial conversations with CMHC and the province have been very positive. There are existing programs that already support this. There are projects of this size that have been financed by nonprofits across Canada, some of which that our organizations have been a part of, Happy Cities and others that are involved. But there's the issue of what happens, how do you fund construction and then after construction, and that comes down really to making the numbers work. But there's the period that's before construction, and I think this is the period of time where the CLT may need more support from the municipality and particularly from the provincial level, because before having significant assets within the CLT's portfolio, they can't leverage that to borrow money to finance what can be up to $1 million of pre-development costs. So figuring this out, I think is something that we're hoping that HRM can support us with, whether by, supporting with funding, by putting some assets in the CLT's hands that they can leverage against, and other factors. So there's still quite a lot of work that needs to be done to make this possible, but we know what we need, and that's going to be a process that we have to work with levels of governments for.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. And, I like the idea of doing something here of this sort because, coming from a planning background, the history in the planning profession is it's the ugly piece of it, which is that, that kind of 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, if you needed to build a highway, where did they all go across North America in pretty much every city? They went on the poor communities, which were also disproportionately people of color, minority communities that then were displaced. And so, we would be naive to think that the Cogswell creation here in Halifax, that this wasn't a factor in that race wasn't part of it. So, I think there is a fundamental justice piece to kind of think about here. How we do that, that's probably the crux of the conversation. I wanted to ask about, the economic numbers you presented, and I think I probably know, but I just want to clarify. You're talking like overall, like economic return to the community. Yeah. So just for people's awareness, like the challenge for the city is, yes, as a community, we end up richer, but on the municipal tax piece, we don't necessarily see that benefit, right? And so luckily we're not a business, so like our job is to provide for the overall, and whether or not we give something out and we don't necessarily get the dollar back directly into our coffers, that's not necessarily the end of the world when you're looking to achieve some bigger objectives. I wanted to ask about whether or not, I like the idea. It's a daunting thing for a brand new organization to be looking at a building of that scale, that size. I'm wondering if there's been any exploration, any thought process to, because where the municipality controls this land, we do have the ability to do things like make requirements at the point of sale for other sorts of arrangements. I'm wondering if there's been any discussion of that too, right? Like recognizing that this is the ask, that you actually want the piece of property, but I'm wondering if there's other options that have been considered as well.
Like Hussam alluded to in the presentation, we wanted to strategically acquire land in the north end as well. That's where communities directly located present day due to being displaced from all the communities mentioned. But that's how we were going to build capacity in the early stages, acquiring those lands in the north end, doing it on a smaller scale, building that capacity for folks to know how to replicate it in other places. And as this project progresses in the Cogswell, we're already having success with those projects in the north end.
And just adding to that, obviously the key goal is acquiring assets that can grow in value over time, that can be, whose the returns of can be reinvested in community. Like that's the purpose of the land trust, and what differentiates it from like just any nonprofit housing agency is that it has its commitment to reinvest in community and to use any return from a potential project to secure more housing assets. Development, it's going from scratch and building something is one way to do it. There may be other ways, and I think there is openness to consider the options. However, I think when you talk about the scale of what's going on here and the importance of building this kind of development capacity within the community. The conversations had with community is there is this desire to use something of this scale to make very lasting change, and that change can be obviously in the form of assets, but it's also the process of going through something like this, and for the community to lead it, for the building to be shaped as to the community's vision, to have the elements that they want for them to choose the architects that are going to work on this, for them to choose what aspects of African Nova Scotian culture are going to be presented in this building, and for that building to be reflective of that process and just like kind of a monument to you know, the community kind of reclaiming its roots within the neighborhood. I think there is a desire for that aspiration, and I think, you know, if the ask is going to be of this scale, then why not dream big to maximize the impact and go for something of that scale?
And the only thing, it's not, I was going to say the only thing I was going to add briefly is, like Hussam mentioned, autonomy is the real key here. Like I spoke to in the presentation, just being able to work to return to that status of this homeowners or business owners. That's kind of why we went with the CLT as opposed to like a community benefits agreement, which we know Lindell and others are advocating for. That gives, for those of you who don't know, that gives community a lot more say in development, but ultimately, like Hussam said, it's the developer at the end of the day putting in the money, taking on that risk, and ultimately has to say so at the end of the day. So even if, worst case scenario, all the units in this building happen to be market rate, all of that money would still go back to community. So that's why autonomy is so important in this.
Okay,
In that sense.
thank you.
All right, thank you. There's no one else on the speakers list. If the committee would permit me to speak from the chair? Yep, thank you. Yeah, so really exciting to see this proposal come forward. You know, I think back over the history, we had, you know, a few other sites in the North End that were being considered for large-scale developments that had a community, you know, that were community-based. One would be Bloomfield, which is sitting there languishing. I don't know how many decades later. We have St. Patrick's Alexandra, where it wasn't that long ago that there was a proposal put forward through the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center, New Horizons Church, and the North End Community Health Center to redevelop that site. Very similar to your idea that you have, that you just presented, you know, looking for recreation space, health space, social space, community theater, housing, affordable housing. And we know what happened with that site as well. And it's sitting there languishing, doing nothing. I think we sold that one for a couple $1 million. Right. So here we are again in the situation where we have HRM land once again and an opportunity to, you know, develop it with a community-oriented project. And we know these things can work because we've seen them in other cities. So whether it's New York City with, you know, cooperatives that were built and have been standing there for decades and still provide affordable housing, or Toronto, you know, as you mentioned. You know, I think we've had a real kind of challenge around inclusionary zoning and like how do you create that mix of home ownership. So, you know, there's these opportunities and we keep having the same discussions. So, you know, I think trying to figure this out is really important. Like, how do we do this? And so I like the idea of the Community Land Trust coming forward. The scale of the project, you know, I feel that's a little bit putting the cart before the horse because we haven't really designed the concept for the Cogswell interchange as a whole. And I think from a planning perspective, that really needs to be considered before we look at one site in particular and look at the capacity or the design or, you know, the scale of the development, that you know, we really need to look at this site comprehensively and kind of figure out that piece before we, you know, would prematurely approve, you know, something even in concept in relation to scale. But, you know, the economic piece, I mean, is important. It has to work economically. And, you know, that's a really critical consideration. So those were just some general comments. I think, Lindell, were you going to put?
Are we done? Question?
Yeah, we're done. Those are just my few comments.
Sure, yeah, so there's a motion that I'll put forward that Community and Economic Development Standing Committee refer the presentation to staff and request that a staff report responding to the presentation be sent to Halifax Regional Council for consideration.
Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Outhit has seconded that. Any questions on the motion?
I'll just really quickly,
Oh, yeah,
if
sorry.
you don't mind, Chair.
No, of course.
Thank you. So the reason why, well, there's two reasons, but one of the reasons why we're asking this to go directly to Regional Council is timing, because we're in a process right now of looking at the land use and planning for the Cogswell District, and I think for time-wise and also for staff who are also in a process, because it was mentioned in the presentation that council already gave direction to look at supporting affordable housing and supporting communities that are marginalized. This just follows that direction, and I think we can just continue that in that sense, and hopefully, and maybe just for confirmation, if staff want to clarify that doing it this way, can this presentation and what is included in it, the ask, be moved forward in the process that's currently happening? Without having to create a new staff report and et cetera, can you just kind of flow it into that to allow it for, I guess, more timely response?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, Ross Grant with Planning and Development, Strategic Projects. Yeah, staff could take the presentation away and bring a report to Regional Council, providing a recommendation and a discussion on the items in the presentation.
Okay. Well, if that works for me, so I'll look at my colleagues, my two colleagues who are here today, and if they're happy, then I'll just call for the question. I don't see anyone else on the board.
All those in favor? All right, that passes. Thank you. And thank you very much for being here and for the presentation and for everyone that's come here to hear this discussion today. Okay, so now we're ready for our second presentation. We have item 10.3.2, the Spryfield Lions Club proposal for community space in the planned Spryfield Rink and Recreation Center. And I'd like to invite David Buffett to come forward and present. Similar to the presentation that we just saw, you'll have 10 minutes. And well, the lovely clerk here will give you a 30-second warning when you're coming to the end of your time, and when the red sign comes up, that will be the end. But please remain seated, as there will be an opportunity for members of the committee to ask questions. So with that, are you ready?
So,
Okay. Well,
I'm
then
not sure, I guess, okay, it's turned red.
Yeah. Red is go in this place.
Okay.
I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Joe Cooper. I am the Vice President of the Spryfield Lions Club. I'll be making the presentation along with Dave here, who's a member of the club. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing us to appear. We're here to seek your support to place before Council a motion that the new recreation facility in Spryfield should include a provision for a permanent Lions den for the exclusive use control of the Spryfield Lions. That is basically what we have now in the facility that's there, which I presume you've got our written presentation, which we conveyed to the city at the time. As settled in the transfer documents, and I don't believe we presented you with the actual transfer purchase and sale agreement back in 2007. But in that agreement, it provided that the, if I can find it, you can never find it when you want it, that the existing Lions Den was to continue to be the exclusive use and control of the Lions Club. Basically what happened was that the den was provided for the Lions. We took care of things in the den. The structure itself, structure was, of course, conveyed to the city, and they looked after it. It was always the intention, as I understand it, and I was not part of the negotiating team, that the Spryfield Lions Club would have that den for its exclusive use. Indeed, in the original, and again, I apologize, I don't believe we gave you this, but in the original letter of intent back in October of 2005, one of the special conditions that was in that letter of intent between the club and the city was, and it's an attachment A, additional conditions. The area currently known as the Spryfield Lions Den shall be available for the exclusive usage by the Spryfield Lions Club for club activities. And I think the wording is similar in the agreement. If you wish, I can give a copy of this because it wasn't in an original presentation. In the agreement as well between the city and the club, there was provision that if there was any major structural or capital upgrades to be done, that was to be responsibility of the city. There was no mention in the agreement about replacing the facility because, quite frankly, at the time, I don't think anybody really envisaged that the building would be torn down and replaced with something new. My understanding now, from my limited knowledge, and I'm on the committee at Open Spryfield that's dealing with the planning aspect of the rink. My understanding now is that the building is going to be completely torn down and replaced with a new facility similar in size and use to what's there now, although there's some thought that we'd like to go bigger, but finances doesn't allow it. But it does not include the replacement or the provision for a Lions Den as was originally as is originally there now in the agreement as it is. It is our position, the Lions Club, that there's two basic reasons why this committee and the city should consider and provide for a Lions Den in the new facility. One, we think is an ethical and moral, although I don't like using the word moral, but an ethical and moral reason for including the club. As I stated, in all the negotiations that took place between the city and the club, it was always intended and was understood that the Lions Den would continue in the Spryfield, in that facility, provide service to the Spryfield area. Again, I wasn't part of the negotiating team, but I don't think it was ever brought up that that building would be completely replaced and that the den would be excluded from that building. If you look at the agreement and the capital expenditure clause, it doesn't talk about replacement, but it does talk about major capital investments and changes to the building. And I would suspect that that was the thought at the time when they were negotiating, that there would be some major changes and improvements, but no replacement. So there was no provision in the agreement for it. But on the basis of the negotiations, the basis that, as settled in our written presentation, that a substantial asset was passed on to the city for, in effect, forgiveness of a very small debt. And it wasn't just the rink that was passed on to the city. There was the rink property, and then there's a piece of property that runs down along the McIntosh Runs in back of the streets running down from J.L. Leslie High School. That's a considerable piece of land for future development. And all of that was given to the city, maybe not free of charge, but essentially as a gift because of the cost of continuing to run the facility. So on that basis, it's our position that in the feeling of goodwill, in the spirit of the negotiations and the dealings between the parties, we should be able to continue to have the den in the facility. It's also our position that allowing a den in the facility is considerable benefit to the community, both in the fact that it allows us to raise funds by which we help people in the community, which you've always done, but it also provides a venue for activities in the community, which the club has always done. On the raising of funds, I don't know how familiar you are with the Spryfield Lions Club, but one time we had a bingo, and our bingo was our main fundraiser, and it provided us with considerable money. And it was through that bingo that we built the rink, It was through that bingo that we acquired land from a Sobe subsidiary that extended our property down. Of course, we don't have the bingo anymore. So the den has become the principal means by which the club now raises money. We hold a small bingo in the den when it was available. We rent it out for functions, birthday parties, anniversaries, New Year's parties. Sometimes there's small meetings that want to be held. We rent that facility out, and the money that we use, or the funds that we get from those usages, we use to help support the community in many varied and different ways. There's always somebody that needs assistance, and we're there to give them that assistance. The other thing is that it's becoming more and more difficult to get a venue in Spryfield now for these kind of activities. The churches who used to provide facilities are pretty well booked up with their own activities. The Golden Age Center is not really big enough to accommodate a lot of events. I know, for instance, that I do a bingo now with the Golden Age Center on Friday, and we hold it at the Legion because the Golden Age Center isn't big enough. The Legion is available, but again, it has limited usage. The Lions Den is a hall. It's not a room. It's a hall that had capacity to hold 100, 120 people. So it could handle big functions, but it could also handle small functions. So we provided this service to the community. If it was a charitable organization, we provided it free of charge. If it was like anniversaries and stuff, we charged a moderate fee. Most times, quite frankly, we made our money from running the bar at these different events. So the benefit to the community was twofold. We got financing, or we got funds that we were able to do things with, but we also provided a spot for people to hold their parties, anniversaries, whatever. So it would continue to be a benefit to the city to have the Lions Den there, to provide that venue for the community and to enable us to keep functioning as the club. Presently, our only other means of raising funds is we have a road toll, which we hold twice a year. From that road toll, we give, and again, it's set out in the brief, we give J.L. Leslie scholarship funds, and we give to the breakfast program at the elementary schools in the area. And those are considerable amounts of money that we give each year. So on the basis, one, that in the spirit that the building was given to the city, in a cooperative manner that would allow us to continue to operate, and on the basis that we do provide a valuable service to the community, we would ask that this council support us in bringing a motion to council that we be included in the new facility. Can I turn this up?
Hi, I'm Dave Buffett, a member of the Spryfield Lions Club. I want to offer a sincere note of thanks, a sincere note of gratitude to this committee and Mr. Ross Siegel for arranging this, but not on my behalf, not on behalf of the Lions, but that note of gratitude is on behalf of the people of our community who need grocery store cards from time to time, who need canes, walkers, wheelchairs, help with prescription eyeglasses. And we need to have an area
You can finish your thought there.
Thank you very much. We need to have an area where, as Lion Joe said, we can rent, host anniversary parties, birthday parties, et cetera, and then 100% of that money goes back to the community. So this isn't something we want. This is something the community needs. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, so we have Councillor Outhit.
Thank you. And, well, tell him I'm not here. So thank you for the presentation. So when I first heard the exclusive use, I kind of, okay, what does that mean? But what that means is you want to have a space within an HRM building, you want to be able to sublet the space, if you will, out to events and run the bar. So, and that's sounds very familiar, doesn't it, to a situation that we have in LeBrun, where they helped, they built a facility and then handed it over to the city and have a wonderful Lions Den there who do a lot for the community. But every building does have its life cycle. And there comes a time when the building becomes too much to run, and it's time for a new building. I don't know if that'll happen to LeBrun for a while, but it will happen someday. Is the area here, and we'll wait and see what the council for the area has to say, but the opportunity here really is, and I completely support this, is you want a space within the facility. Absolutely get that. And you want to continue to perhaps operate the bar, which is a source of revenue. So I'm just wondering if there isn't some sort of a compromise here where the community has to build a facility, a new facility that hopefully is more efficient to run than an aging building. And you folks deserve a place in that building, and you deserve an opportunity to make some money from that building. I think where I may have gotten a little bit off track was when you say exclusive use. Exclusive use doesn't mean that only the Lions use it. It means you folks want to be able to rent it out to the public, even though it's within an HRM facility. Am I correct?
Well, exclusive doesn't mean for Lions use only.
Correct.
What it means is really the ability to control the scheduling of events
Right.
and the scheduling of activities. And, just as an example, we had our board of directors meeting at the Lions Club Tuesday night. And we had to, at the time we were, and again, this is settled in the written submission, at the time we were refused to be able to go into the den. A provision was made that we should be able to use the Atlantic Room, which is up front in the rink.
Okay.
I don't know how familiar you are with the rink.
No, I mean, I've been, but. Yeah.
And that we were to have that exclusive use every second and fourth Tuesdays, because that's the times we use we have our board meeting and our general meeting.
Sure.
Well, we couldn't use the Atlantic Room this Tuesday because it was booked out for something else.
Okay.
I don't know whether there was miscommunication or whatever. But anyways, luckily we were able to use the old boardroom that was in the facility. So what we're concerned about is that when we say exclusive, we want to be able to have control so that we can schedule things and arrange things and make sure that there's no conflicts with the scheduling of events. The facility, even as it is now, is always open to the community. If the community, if there's a community event and they need that hall, then the Lions Club provides it. It can be rented, or if it's a community organization or charitable organization, sometimes we provide it free for those situations. But so when I say exclusive use, it's not that it's only going to be used for the Lions. It's going to be open for everybody.
I think the challenge is that you should have a den there. You should have office space there, meeting space there. You should probably have a bar where you can make some money. But if there's a public space and it's to be rented out, who gets the money? HRM Recreation or the Lions? And I think that's probably where the challenge is going to be, and maybe the councillor for the area will have more to say on that. But anyway, I definitely think that you belong, definitely deserve to have a home there and some sort of source of revenue. So I'll see what others have to say, but yeah.
Just,
No, you got to go red there, yeah. There you go.
Is it on? Okay.
You're good. Yeah, you're good.
All we're asking for is really for a continuation of the situation as it now is. I mean,
Right.
the building is technically a city building,
Yes.
operated by the city, and we run the den, and we have functions there, and we get our revenue from it. So we're not asking for anything new or outrageous for the city in this situation. We're asking really for the status quo to continue.
Right. No, I get that, and it's similar to the LeBrun situation, so I'm familiar.
Well,
with that,
exactly.
so, yeah. All right, thanks very much. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and I am kind of coming at this cold. I was just digging through the email trying to find the written submission because it wasn't attached to the meeting, and I haven't seen it. So and I don't know your community, so apologies if I'm getting any of these assumptions wrong because I simply don't have the background coming from the Dartmouth side. It's not a spot I know. So when this place was built, it was built by the Lions, and then it was sold to the city of Halifax back in the day for what, like $1 type things for the city to run it? Sorry?
The agreement called for $1, which is
Yeah.
standard legalese.
Yeah.
It was essentially sold for an outstanding debt, which is, again, set out in the presentation, and the debt, I think, was $115,000.
So the Lions owed the city 100, or owed somebody 115, and the city
Yes.
paid off that debt, and
But
then
the city took that
the
debt
building?
over. And I'm not sure, but I think most of that
That's
debt
still practically a
hasn't been owed to
donation.
the city. Pardon?
That's still practically a donation, $115,000 for the land and building
Yeah.
in exchange for paying off a debt. That's, yeah, I mean, that's a gift, really.
Yeah.
So, okay, and so now the building's at the end of its life, and it's time to replace it, is basically where we're heading. And in the new plan, the city's not planning to include the Lions right now.
There's no plan for the building, as far as I know, but I think the intention is, and my understanding is that, and I may be wrong in this, my understanding is that it's either the policy of the city, I don't know if it's set out somewhere, that in new construction anyways, that there should not be any dedicated space to any kind of organization.
Yeah.
That all spaces have to be open to the community as a whole. And what we're stating here or arguing here is that that is fine and dandy where you're building a completely new building from scratch sort of thing where there was no existing building. This is a peculiar situation in that we built the rink. We not only built the rink, we built the rec center in back of it. We acquired the land. That land cost us $30,000 that we bought from Sobeys, and it was included in the whole deal. So we acquired all this property, built it up, and for the longest time, the only recreational facility in Spryville was provided by the Spryville Lions. And we're saying, when we transferred this, we transferred it, and again, I wasn't part of the negotiation, and I'm assuming this, but I think we transferred it with the idea that we would continue to have a permanent place in any facility that was there, so we could carry on as a Lions Club. Frankly, if you don't have a facility, I mean, there are Lions Clubs who don't have a permanent
Yeah.
home.
Sorry, I gotta-
It really hinders your ability to carry on.
Yeah, I only have about a minute and a half left. I want to ask you another one before my time expires. I've seen this from both sides in my own district. Like, there was some dedicated space in like the Finley Community Center for like the seniors center, and there was difficult conversations about like when HRM started to bring in the new policy there about how that space would transition from being an exclusive use space into a space that's available not just for that seniors club, but available for other people to book too. So you're not alone in that. The flip side is we've recently opened a new building in my district. We replaced a series of ramshackled old things at Graham's Grove, and the Kiwanis Club has exclusive space in the new building that they control, that they lease out. Part of why they have that space is because they came at it with a partnership with HRM. They put like $400,000 into the new build, and so that's how that came about. The third piece is also in my district, North Woodside Community Center. It's an HRM facility. It's operated by the North Woodside Community Center Association. They lease out the spaces. They don't do tenants, but they lease out the classrooms. They put on the programming there. They run the facility on behalf of HRM under an agreement. So when I think about this situation, I think there should be a way to get to the art of the possible here, and I wonder if it's either, I don't know what your finances are, whether or not there's an ability to go the avenue of the Kiwanis did in Dartmouth, where it's like a substantial contribution towards a new build when that comes to then, get this exclusive space, or two, whether or not you become an operator of a new facility as a third-party agreement, the way HRM does with basically every hall that we own in the rural HRM. And the North Woodside Community Center in my district is kind of the oddity because most of the urban stuff is not run that way, but like every community hall in rural HRM, that's the way they're run, is they're set up in that way. And I wonder if there's some ability to do that here. So those are the kind of things that are on top of my head as to how we might be able to navigate something here.
Do you want me to answer? Yeah, on the question of contribution, basically, as a Lions Club, we spend our money as we get it. And we have a little reserve, but we don't have a big amount of money to contribute a couple $100,000 to this facility. On the question of setting up some kind of arrangement, I'm not particularly familiar with the LeBrun Center and the Veteran Lions. I know they have a den in that facility, and that there's some kind of an agreement, but I don't think we'd be adverse to setting up some kind of, or entering into some kind of agreement for a management position. But our big concern is that we need a facility that we can carry on the functions and the activities that we've carried on. And it's not just a room, it's a hall. And not as big as this, but it's a fair-sized hall, and we need that to be able to raise the funds, because right now, like I said, we got a lot of money from bingo. We had a very successful bingo early on. That's gone because of many factors, and really the only independent source of revenue we have now is really the den and renting out the den and carrying on activities there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Austin. All right, there's no one else on the board. If I can speak from the chair, thank you. Yeah, so it's really great to see you all here. I was unfamiliar with the entire history of the Lions Club and their contribution to the Spryfield Arena until recently. I always knew that obviously it's called the Spryfield Lions Arena, and you had a significant role in it. But breaking it down was, it was enlightening to me, that knowing that you actually had the 3 parcels of land, you transferred the land, you built the arena, and you gave all of this for the community of Spryfield. And I think that contribution and all the contributions you make to the community through the scholarships or for helping people in need really need to be recognized. I think it's a challenge right now for us to, when I had a conversation last night with someone in charge of volunteer activities and how hard it is to recruit volunteers, and how this is really leaving a hole and a gap in our communities. And so when I see the Lions Club and all the work you're doing, and the willingness for the continuity and continuing to serve the community of Spryfield, I think that needs to be applauded, it needs to be recognized, and it needs to be acknowledged. So for those not familiar, the Spryfield Lions Rink is on the recapitalization list, and right now we're undergoing a community consultation process, looking at kind of the changing recreational needs in the community, significant growth out there, so lots of conversation about that. It includes an arena, a multi-purpose center, the Lions Den, and I guess the Atlantic Room, which is where the organization that runs the rink right now really kind of meets and holds their meetings. So it is an HRM-owned facility run by a third party. So it's one of these nice complicated arrangements that we have throughout HRM, many different versions of this. So with the new facility coming on, I think there needs to be a real acknowledgement of the role that the Lions Club played in the building of that original facility, and their significant contribution to the community and to HRM. What that model looks like, as we've just heard, we have LeBrun, we have the facilities in Dartmouth, we have 70 facilities across HRM, each with kind of a different version and idea of how to make these partnerships and collaborations work, kind of what's appropriate, really like looking at the details of it. Because if you have one facility with 2 different operators renting out, different pieces of the same building, I think there needs to just be some thought put into what would be the best model to ensure that the community has access to the programming space that they need. Because as you pointed out, we're really at capacity. I was at the Spryfield, the Captain Spry Center last night, and every single room was taken up, and it was like really at capacity. So we know we need space. We know there's demand for space. Just what that looks like is something that we're going to need to go take away and get a staff report on. So we right now at this committee here, we couldn't make a motion to approve what you're proposing because we can't do that without having a staff report. But what we've done now is you've provided the background information. It's on the public record. We've had the discussion amongst the committee, and I'm going to make a motion to, I might as well just make the motion now. Well, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. Here I go. I'm going to make a motion to refer the presentation. Oh, I have to step down. Oh, okay. Here, Lindell, here, can I pass the motion to you? It's for this Okay, so I'll ask Councillor Smith to make the motion. And then we can talk about it.
I didn't want to cut, you were just on a roll. So I'll make the motion to refer the presentation to staff for a report.
Second.
All right.
My notes back now.
Yes. Yeah, I'll just say I support that motion.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have all of this tabled now on the public record, and what will happen is, Maggie, I don't know, can you explain a little bit of what happens next?
Certainly. So as you, through you, Councillor, to you, as you mentioned, we're in public consultation right now, so this, the timing, I would say, aligns well to be able to come back to committee with a report that includes the findings of public consultation, but also that speaks to some of these questions that were raised today in terms of what are the different options going forward in terms of how the relationship with the Lions at that site going forward.
Great. Right, this is a kind of a weird process. I feel like I've lost the rhythm now. But I guess we just call for the, does anyone want to call for the question? Okay, call for the question. All those in favor? Okay, there we go. That motion passes. And with that, that's it. So thank you very much for being here today and for presenting this information, and we will see you back in Spryfield. Go Spryfield, yes. Yeah, or maybe they're going to want to watch the rest. Everyone is welcome to stick around for the next item on the agenda, which is, pardon? Yeah. Are you going to?
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, yeah. Jumping ahead of myself here.
I can confirm that there are no registered speakers for public participation.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're on the public participation portion of the meeting. If anyone in the gallery would like to come and speak, you could have a maximum of 5 minutes. Ask that you please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. The clerk will hold up a yellow sign when you have 30 seconds remaining, and when your time is complete, the clerk will hold up the red sign. We don't have any names on the list, so I'm going to call 3 times and ask if there's any additional speakers. Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak today? All right, sir, come on up to the front. And if you could just state your name and your community, and your 5 minutes will begin.
Hello. Yes, my name's Tyler Martin. From Truro. I was imported to Uniac Square. Trino's my younger brother. My mother and I were displaced originally from Truro. My mother thought it would be better to move to a bigger city to allow for a new beginning and for prosperity for her and her new family. So I was about 6 months when we moved here to Uniacke Square, when I was imported from Truro. I grew up in Uniacke Square. We lived on actually Uniacke Street. During that time, through the 80s, it was very rough, and it was tumultuous. There was a lot of people who looked like me, so African Nova Scotians, and a lot of people who were displaced from Africville would tell me the story of how they were displaced from Africville, and I empathized with them, and I just listened to their stories. Through that, I wanted to educate myself and help others, and that's what I chose to do. I feel that through the 90s and through the 2000s, I impacted a lot of people from my area. Lindell, one of them people, as you see him here. It's all good. It's all good. I even gave him my braider, and I don't do that. So you're welcome. I started Beautification Day, which still happens in Uniacke Square. It's now used by Parent Resource Center, and Mike Savage comes out almost every year and shakes our hand and does what he's supposed to. For me, I started talking about the gentrification prior to it happening because I knew I was ahead of my time, and unlike my brother, I always tell him all the time, I know I'm not palatable, and my mom told me before I came up here to speak respectfully. And I always advise him, like, you're a lot like me, but you don't have any of the negative qualities, which is great. And that's why he will succeed, and that's why I believe that this is vital for this community. We've been displaced many a times, whether it be Truro, whether it be Africville, whether it be out in North Preston. Having someone who looks like me in a position of power to make change, or even to be a owner of a house, for a long time wasn't fathomable. I remember a time when all of Creighton Street was owned by people who look like me. I seen the tumultuous situations of Uniacke Square and Creighton Street be plagued by drugs, crime, and that was all by design, right? They might not say it was. I remember when the first Charlie Zone, which is a police unit, went into the square. It used to be up on Godigan beside Joe's Market. That was the original Charlie Zone, like a police enforcement spot in case something happened and they needed to get there too, quick. 1992, there was a race riot. And when that happened, that's when they moved it from on Godigan right into the square. So I seen all of this, and through that, I always wanted to bring it to the forefront, like, hey, we are people, we would like to get educated, and we would like to have ownership. Through the decline, we've seen the prices of the houses go down, and that, once again, that was by design. Some people who look like me started selling off because they started to get older, and they wanted to enjoy their retirement or whatever the case may be. So you have that disparity of the new generation, either me or younger, who went to the schools, St. Pat's, and wasn't given proper education. We still graduated, some of us. And to come to the forefront and be in a position to actually make change and be cognizant enough to be like, hey, this isn't right. We've seen the prices and the taxes go down, and now that it got acquired by someone else or anything, now these taxes and prices are going up. Then there was a place across from the library, which was sold from Sobeys back in 1991, I do believe, and it was sold to a Creighton Street Development for $1. Sobeys told Creighton Street Development that they were not able to sell it to another person or to allow any other storefront or anything like that, because Sobeys wanted to keep their area intact. They weren't able to build on it for 20 years because of the spill that was on the land, so they had to wait for the contamination to dissolve. So that happened probably around 98, 99. Then they sold off some of the property and built the Creighton Street development on Creighton Street, and it was affordable housing. Affordable to who? We're talking about 2002. The affordable housing back then was a minimum of $70,000. That's not affordable to me. And now here we are in 2024. So what is affordable housing? Who is it affordable to? What do those people look like? There's a person named Dawn Sloan. She got one of those affordable housing units, which she still lives in till this day. So I believe that something like what my brother's doing, community land trusts, and what I obviously do on my own, One Brick Properties, is well needed. And I've always led by example. I understand I am very rigid, but like I told Lindell, my nose is brown enough. I'm good. Quote the Raven, nevermore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the gallery who would like to speak today? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone else here today that would like to come up and speak? Oh, there we go. Welcome up. Please state your name and your community, and you'll have 5 minutes. You'll have 5 minutes to speak, and the clerk will let you know when your time is coming to an end. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Trayvon Clayton, board member of Community Land Trust, along with Trino Morton. I am from Uniacke Square, 25 years old, and I've seen a lot within 25 years, and I'm still young, and I know all about the gentrification that's happening around my community. It's stuff that my mother's been talking about, my grandmother dealt with, my father's dealt with, and so this is for what Trino is doing, to me, is a very inspiring and motivational thing for our community. But at the same time, it's something we shouldn't be doing over and over and over again. You look at Africville, what happened there? After Africville, they told us Uniacke Square was our promised land. What is Uniacke Square now? Everyone's coming there, a lot of newcomers, nothing wrong with newcomers, but they don't know the research of our community. And that's another thing throughout the council. Not too much people know about our history of African Nova Scotians. We are indigenous, we are unique. We've been here for over more than 400 years, but yet nothing is still given to us. Nothing is still being placed to us. We've been here for a very long time, and as you can see, Uniacke Square right now has a lot of gentrification. There's the whole new playground, bringing a lot of new faces. I was standing there about 2 weeks ago, and as I looked around, I did a 360, and I'm seeing a lot of people who are not from my community. It's good, because growing up as a kid, I was always hearing, don't go to Uniacke Square, don't go to Uniacke Square, don't go to Uniacke Square. But now seeing all the new people, I'm thinking, is that good or is that bad? Because are they trying to push us out to get the new people in? Or are they bringing new people so that they actually understand who we really are as Uniacke Square in the North End community? North End was always told, or was known as a dominant black community and bad place. All the people I know from high school lived in the South End are now living in Uniacke Square, North End, Creighton Street. And it's just like, what is going on now? So it's what Trino is doing has a lot of motivation, has a lot of stuff going for it, moving forward, and I really do think it should be taken into consideration here, and that it's something that should be looked at for the Black and African Nova Scotian community. So just kind of wanted to back up on Trino, and I do sit as rep Road to Economic Prosperity as well, and what Trino touched upon is our 3 pillars: land trust, education, and housing. That's our biggest things, and we are looking to get that out there. We are hosting an index launch for officials at the Central Library, and that's going to be our first official launch of our index and our statistics from the African Nova Scotian community. So I do think you guys should take that into consideration as well, because it's going to explain a lot of what Trino is looking to do for the African Nova Scotian community. So thank you.
All right, thank you for coming to speak with us today. Are there any other speakers? Okay, Thank you. You're welcome to come up and speak at the microphone. All right. All right. I just want to say thank you. I know sometimes it's intimidating to come and sit at the table here and speak to us in this chamber, and so very well done. Thank you. Okay. I guess I need to call 3 more times here. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak here today? I see no more speakers. And with that, we'll close the public participation process part of our meeting and move on to information items brought forward, none, and reports. We have a report 13.1.1 supplemental report on ball diamonds. So we have a motion for that, and we do have staff here that are available to answer any questions on this item. But there's no presentation, I take it? No, no presentation. So kind of need Tim sitting down for a quorum, don't we? He's kind of like quasi-quorum. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so supplemental report on ball diamonds. There's a motion for this item. Does anyone want to put the motion on the floor? Councillor Smith?
There's no presentation, right? No, okay. That Community Planning Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council direct Chief Administrative Officer to continue the implementation of the recommendations outlined in the playing field strategy as they relate to ball diamonds.
Seconded by Councillor Austin. Any discussion or questions for staff on this item?
I have a super fast one, and when I scanned through the report, didn't read the whole thing, just being truthful. Is there any discussion on, because I know the lighting strategy is something that's happening as well, so just wondering how those two pieces connect to the baseball diamonds and the lighting strategy work that's happening.
Sure. So the, to the chair, to the councillor. So the lighting strategy is part of the recommendations of the playing field strategy. It's instrumental in providing additional access for ball diamond access to the groups, because it does enable us to basically double the access that we would have for groups. Right. To diamonds. So that is currently being implemented or reviewed by Strategic Planning and Design with Parks and Recreation.
So I guess the other question, and you'll be very familiar with this because I have significant ball diamond use in my area, in my district, from Merv Sullivan to the Commons and others. And one of the concerns I hear from, I'll just say groups, to generalize, is the timing that happens related to ball diamond use and when we start putting poles up for football. So just bringing this here, because I know it's a conversation that happens a lot, I'm just wondering, are there any discussions around when we would potentially time when softball season starts and when we change over some of our fields that have baseball diamonds in them to football or whatever else it might be? I know I'm probably not the only one, but just wondering if that has been part of discussion around timing.
Sorry, Doug, I just need you to put your name on the record, please.
Yes, I just realized, sorry. Chair to the councillor, my name is Doug Murphy. I'm the manager of sport and scheduling with HRM Parks and Recreation. So yes, councillor, that is a very unique field, and it is something that we try to manage as best we can each year. So there is a transition that happens in October from that field being Merv Sullivan to from a baseball diamond to a sport field, and depending on the year, if there's lots of rainouts and there's a need for extension, we try to be as flexible as we can with groups. But the other option that the playing field strategy does recommend is moving as much as we can football, high school football, off of grass fields at that time of year to all weather, which is something that we're looking at implementing.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Councillor Elhit.
Thank you. And Doug, you're the poor soul that inherited Rob Smith's job, is that the case?
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, I am. Yeah.
So if we think our jobs are tough, try that balancing act that you do, keeping all these teams happy. Just my own curiosity, obviously I support this motion and will in the report. Where are we with Range Park in Lenahan now? Are we just going to have to sort of hold and maintain until we figure out what we do next? I mean, obviously we'd like to see it upgraded, we'd like to see lighting, better lighting, all this sort of things, but of course we've also seen it up to the top of the goalposts with water, literally. I saw people canoeing and kayaking looking down on the goalposts. So we know it's a floodplain and we know it was built that way. And it does drain out, but sort of what are we sort of in that situation? I don't know if it's a better question for you, Ray, or whatever. Just sort of hold and maintain while we continue, or?
So through,
'cause it's busy.
Yeah, through to the council, through the chair to the councillor. I do believe right now it is a hold and maintain until other lands have been identified for more infrastructure. Yeah. I believe there's been significant reparation to the lights for this year, and we're close to having both fields now operational for this year again. So
the next flood.
Yeah. So, but that is in the plan, and strategic planning and design is looking at options to be able to potentially what do we do about that site, and do we look at trying to create new spaces that are not in a floodplain, that the community would be able to access and would be maintained.
And I think that's the challenge, is it's sort of like with the rigs to some extent, used to be even more, is that we want to have the community sort of diamonds where people locally just walk to them, whatever, and play them. But we're also going to need these, as and I know the reports looked into this in the past as well, is these hubs, if you will, where we have tournaments and where we have. So that's always that sort of, that fine line between what's a community and what's a regional sort of facility. So you'll have a tough job ahead. But I really appreciate that all of you are trying to keep Range Park going and the work you've done to restore it. But my worry is that how long till the next one. But thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Elhit. If I may ask a question from the chair. So I have a question about growth and demand. One of the things I've noted, and I have to say my starting point in this role, of course, was in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic when there was nothing normal. But over the last year, particularly last summer, what I witnessed in the community was a real comeback with kids' sports. And in particular, there's a Spryfield Sambro baseball league that was dormant for a number of years. I think interest was kind of waned a bit, and now it's kind of come back with more demand than capacity. And so that's great. And I mean, it's wonderful to see volunteers kind of picking up the torch here and kind of rebuilding the league, and it's very popular. But all of a sudden I'm looking around at my baseball fields, and I know we had a conversation just last week about the ones in Williamswood, about perhaps bringing that back a bit. But this spring I'm getting more calls and emails about the baseball fields than I have in the past 3 years. And I'm just wondering, in terms of demand, if you have any comments, like, are you seeing a return in demand, or has there been, like, from whatever the benchmark was pre-COVID, or has there been a growth in demand as well, as we've seen our city grow, as well as many more young people in the city?
To the chair. That's a great question, and I think that there has been increased demand from over the last probably 6 years. We've seen a significant demand. I don't know if it's related to just the growth in the sport or if it's population growth, but last year I think we had 28,000 hours on HRM-operated and scheduled fields. And this year so far, the season isn't even really it's just starting to begin now, and we're at 25,000. And that will just continue to grow over the course of the year. So our projection is we'll be beyond 28,000 again this year. And from the consultation that was done through the 14 user groups that we work with during the development of this report, they are saying they've seen numbers skyrocket for, in many cases, younger levels, which is great. However, as those children age, our infrastructure will not meet the demand for that, especially when they become like 15 years old, 18 years old. We don't have the infrastructure, the quality or size fields for them to continue to move forward with the sport.
So what's the plan?
So the plan is captured in a lot of the recommendations in the playing field strategy. For example, multi-field complexes that might have between 3 to 8 diamonds per complex would help bridge a lot of that gap, especially for tournaments and older level of play. We also will be bringing forward allocation policy or guidelines to council within the next year or so that will also hopefully help alleviate some of the current pressures that we're facing. Right now, with our historical process, groups are able to maintain their historical time slots, and some of those time slots are not conducive to maximizing access. So a group might have 7 to 9 o'clock on a particular field, and we really don't have a mechanism in place to maximize that by having them shift earlier or later. So an allocation policy to make sure that age-appropriate play is on the correct diamonds, which would free up other diamonds for the correct level of play.
All right, so that's great to hear. It sounds like some thought and strategy is going into this, mitigating these kind of growth demands. Thank you. I don't see any other speakers on the board. So with that, the question's being called, and all those in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes. Thank you all for being here this morning. That was applause. I saw that applause.
That was Doug's first time presenting.
Oh,
A long time.
that's I hear that's your first time presenting to CPED here. Well done. Thank you very much. Great work. Okay. Let's hope. Okay, motions. We don't have any motions. In camera, we have in-camera minutes from January 18th, moved by Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for that? Minutes from January 18th? Yeah, Sam? Second on the minutes from January 18th. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. That passes. Added items. I do not see any. Notices of motion. Does anyone have a notice of motion today? Nope, no notices of motion. The date of our next meeting is June 20th, 2024. And with that, I ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Smith, and that is it. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.